20, which is amazing. And with that being said, I think that's an amazing number to start this exciting session today about the future of waste management and the IoT-powered solutions. My name is Wojciech Wosecki. I'll be your host today, but I'm joined by three amazing speakers, experts, and panelists that they will introduce yourself a little bit. It's Alexander, Andrea, and Lance. But first things first, welcome to the last day of the Knowledge Summit 2023, focused on cities and the Industrial Revolution. I'd like to thank the organizers from UNDP and MBRF for giving us this opportunity today. In today's virtual session, we are excited to be covering a topic which is extremely relevant. You know, the problem of waste is unstoppable, and everyone here today, I think, will have amazing stories and solutions to talk about how to tackle it. But first things first, a little bit of a housekeeping. If you need interpretation, there's a link down there at Zoom. You can choose between English and Arabic. And secondly, we really encourage everyone to leave comments in the chat. Tell us what you think, ask questions, because at the end of this session, in the last 15 or 20 minutes, we will be going through them together with our panelists and me as a moderator. So we are very curious what you think, and don't hesitate to drop us comments. And last but not least, stay tuned for more sessions to come later today. And with that being said, I would love to give floor for our panelists to briefly introduce themselves. We will go through that quick run of introductions, and then we'll have three presentations from each and one of them, from Alexander first, Andrea second, and Lance third, last but definitely not the least. We will have a quick Q&A between me and the speakers, and then in the last 20 minutes, we'll have space to discuss all of us together, also focused on your questions. I hope you enjoy this, and please, feel free to connect with us in any way you would like. Alexander, it's great to have you with us here. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? How did you end up with this amazing topic, and what are you going to talk about today?
Yes, hello everybody, and a very warm salam alaikum. I feel very much honored joining you today. So we'll be talking about waste, about the revolution in waste management. I've been in waste management business for the last 20 years now. I'm based in Germany, and I'm managing partner of company Dr. Rochlitz Consulting. We do waste management consultancy services all over the world. So we do have our customers, municipalities, private waste collectors in Africa, South America, Europe, so all over. Means I have seen waste. I know what waste is like. There are many things I'm not that good in, but if it comes to waste, I guess I can say I'm quite of an expert. And if we talk about waste, and I think that's crucial, it might be crucial today as well, waste management is not just like the same all over the world. We have many differences, we have many different cultures and whatsoever. So looking very much forward to a very interesting discussion, and I'll be giving some thoughts from my perspective later on. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. And we will look forward to that. We'll jump into that in just a second. Andrea, how about you?
Thank you, Wojciech. Hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be part of this panel, and I'm very much looking forward to discussing this topic and answering the questions from the audience. I'm co-founder of Sensoneo company. Our exclusive focus is waste management technologies in terms of innovative software and also hardware solutions that we all produce in-house. And right now we are active in more than 90 countries from all over the world. So we have quite an interesting overview of what's going on in terms of adaptation, readiness, curiousness, and everything in terms of waste management technologies. So I'm happy to be part of the panel and looking forward, really.
Thanks. We're happy to have you. Lance, come in, please.
Hi, good day to everyone from wherever you are. My name is Lance. I'm the founder of Scrap Deals, a waste tech startup backed by venture capital here in Singapore. Our focus is on using IoT and AI to help corporates and other private entities collect waste data. I'll go into a little bit more details about what we do later on in my presentation, so stay tuned.
We will. Thanks, Lance. Well, without any further ado, let's go to Alexander because he has prepared a really interesting summary that I'm going to be sharing with you just now. And I'm going to hand over to him. The floor is yours, Alexander. Please walk us through it.
Yes, just a very quick introduction here, and I'm very much looking forward to have an open and interesting discussion. Talking about waste, we realize we have a problem. We have a global problem. Everybody's aware about it. And even for the time being, whatever we do, we're facing a huge global littering problem. And waste is not getting less, it's getting more every day, day by day. And we do realize, you see some figures here, that a lot of waste still ends up in landscape, rivers, oceans, you know about it. So we do have indeed a massive problem if it comes to waste. And talking about waste and talking about on how waste management has had revolutionary developments, one major step has been, as last century they started to containerize waste. So meaning collecting waste in bins and being picked up by trucks. So this has been a very, very major step forward. But now, and maybe if we move to the next slide, we will be talking about IoT-powered solutions. We do have indeed, and we've seen it during the last couple of years, very, very interesting developments in the market. So driven by digitalization, we do realize, and we do have excellent technologies out there for digitalization of the sites. We do have route planning. We do have level detection. So we do have very interesting solutions. We also have, for example, the solid compacting bins, the ones you see almost in the middle. They were based at the Dubai Expo, 400 of these systems, intelligent bins. So a lot of development has been taking place. But there's one thing we need to bear in mind. Whatever we see here is quite costly. So, and we need to differentiate a lot in between also different countries and opportunities. For example, on the right-hand side, you do see a technology in which waste is not only collected, but waste, as soon as waste is thrown into a truck, it is monitored by cameras, and via artificial intelligence, waste is classified already. This is fantastic. It's just great. But if I do think about, let's say, one of my customers, let's say a municipality in Africa, if I would tell them to solve your waste solution, you need to buy 100 of these trucks, $250,000 US each, and $100,000 for the cameras, he will be saying, Alexander, you must be totally nuts. So, meaning that if we move over to the next slide, if we do have this revolution within waste management, will IoT and digitalization solve the global problem? For the time being, from my perspective, no, unfortunately. But, and there's a big but in here, yes, indeed, if we do look at a little bit more industrialized countries, if we look at Europe, if we look at the United Emirates, if we look to North America, these kind of countries, they do generate a huge amount of waste. A huge amount of waste, very much driven also by plastic. So if we would only be having intelligent technologies, the ones already mentioned, this will help, of course, massively to reduce waste. Because first of all, it will create more transparency. And as you all know, whatever you do, transparency is always crucial. So, of course, creating transparency, digitalization will help a lot as a starting point. We will, of course, be able to optimize operations. We will be able to reduce CO2, that's for sure, because we will be able to reduce the amount of pickups for waste. So I'm fully convinced that all the technology for the time being, which we have in hand, will totally help to reduce waste. And on top of that, it will increase and help to have much better segregation on the one hand side, segregation on the front end, but also industrial segregation. For example, you do have automated recycling plants in which driven by IoT, you'll be able then to recognize what kind of waste it is, and then you do have special technology just to increase segregation. So we are, from my perspective, at the very, very beginning. The revolution here has already started, so that's very good news. There's still a long way to go, but from my perspective, yes, it will have a very positive impact. And yeah, I'm very much looking forward to an open discussion and to discuss with yourselves your points of view. And yeah, that much as an introduction from my side.
Awesome. Thanks. Alexander, we have a few minutes left, actually. So that gives me the honor to, have a few questions. And the first that I'm thinking of is, I agree with you. I think the revolution is just started. There's a lot to improve. And I believe a lot of people listening are kind of working in the field, maybe are in the business, want to jump in the business. What would be your advice to them? How do you get on board? How do you get up to speed? How do you reap the benefits of the revolution that's unfolding in waste management? How do you get ready for it?
Yeah, well, first of all, you really need to be aware, and you need to know what is needed. So if I do think about some municipalities, let's say a municipality somewhere in Southern America or in Africa, of course, the technologies we'll be talking about there are nice, but they do have, up to a certain extent, other issues which need to be solved first. So it has to be done step by step. We'll be realizing that maybe some municipalities, some private waste collectors, probably they might be taking 2 steps at the same time and moving faster forward. So I think it's always very, very important to know what is really needed and what kind of technology will really make things better. And coming back to the example I had with the cameras in the back of a truck, yes, that's nice technology, no doubt about it. We do have this technology in Germany, we do have it in Austria, but is it really needed for all the countries all over the world? Or should, let's say, the first step maybe be digitalizing the different sites, maybe starting with optimizing collection, these kind of things, and then step by step moving forward. And we always need to bear in mind all technologies which we are talking about here, they are costly. And by the end of the day, we need to be sure that we do optimize waste management, that's for sure. But of course, we need to have the cost structure in mind.
Awesome. I have one more question. We have a minute and a half left. So, please, just try to be brief. But when it comes to the West, Germany, other countries, we are proud of the tech and the digitization, but at the same time, you said it, we produced enormous amounts of waste per capita. Is there something that Germany can learn from the rest of the world about waste? Or do we believe we have only things to teach others?
Oh, no, absolutely not. There's a lot to learn, not only to teach. And a very important issue here, and I do always give it as a good example. we're talking about different countries. We're talking about different regions. If I do say that at my home place, for example, bio-waste is collected every fortnight, meaning every 14 days. Just imagine what it would be like collecting bio-waste somewhere in Africa, collecting bio-waste in Dubai every fortnight. Would be a total disaster. So I think it's very important here that we do listen to each other, that we do exchange our learnings, because one thing is for sure, yes, let's say Northern Europe, we are pretty much advanced if it comes to waste management, but by the end of the day, we have not found the final solution. So I think an open discussion both ways is very, very important and crucial here. And I think this should be one of the major aims of today's discussion.
Awesome. You nailed it, and that's what we're trying to do. Thank you so much, Alexander. Super interesting. Now, with that being said, I would love to give space to Andrea to take it off from here on. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Wojciech. Hopefully you can see my presentation.
Yes, we can.
All right. I'm just trying to remove the slides, but apparently not that easy at the moment. Just a second, please. Good.
No worries. There you go.
I'm happy you can see it without a problem. So here is a little bit about us. We co-founded our company called Sensonio with my husband. It was like 7 years ago with a clear mission. Our background is in technologies, and by accident, we entered the world of waste management, which we identified as incredibly interesting because of the lack of data. This was something identified as the true problem to be actually follow with technologies and good decisions to be made. And what really inspired us is the increasing volume of waste, and urbanization is very much connected, actually. These services are really very costly in terms of waste collection processing, and there is a strong environmental awareness going on globally, and this is valid absolutely everywhere. You won't find a country in the world which wouldn't be worried about the situation. As our approach is in technologies, we have actually identified several kind of tools and products that we have managed to develop, as I said, all in-house in order to help the customers with their specific challenges. And exactly as Alexander said, not everything fits for everyone. So first, before you launch any technology, you have to understand your goals, your current situation, and aspiration. You have to educate a lot of people or customers or civilians. It's really very diverse, and technology comes next. So here is just an explanation of what is actually currently available, and it's not only our company that does this. So we are now able to basically identify each and every bin, understand who is the owner, where it is currently located, how full it was. We can monitor everything online in real time, so you can really see everything what's going on. As Alexander said, there is a possibility to really optimize the waste collection routes to the best possible way. So in the end, you are not driving empty kilometers with empty cars. There is also very powerful analytics available for customers to be able to make right strategic decisions based on data. And what I'm actually happy about is the ability to include people into these decisions. For example, they can identify the nearest available bin for a specific type of waste and get directions to it. So they are immediately like a part of the game, let's say. As I said, the portfolio of the customers, it's really very diverse. Naturally, mostly the waste collection and waste management companies are the ones who approach us. But there is a lot of movement going on also regarding the deposit return schemes, which is something that mostly countries in Europe are applying in order to improve the recycling rates. Because what does this mechanism do is actually to motivate people to return back, for example, plastic packaging, because they are getting back some amount of money. And this proved to be a very powerful tool. And I believe there should be more materials actually included in the schema, because the results are already there from many countries. So what does the digitalization lead to is really to know the data. You are not surprised, and you are now able to do really meaningful decisions regarding waste. So that's it from my side, from the perspective of the presentation, and I will be happy to get questions either from you or the audience.
That's great, Andrea, and congrats. I mean, what a success, right? Must have been quite a journey. I also, about what Alexander said, and you mentioned it again, you know, we have different starting points in the world when it comes to waste, different challenges. Is there any way that, you know, the countries that are just jumping on this revolution can leap forward and don't repeat the mistakes we've done in Europe? And how, you know, like, what is it that they don't have to maybe do that we have to fix?
Well, first of all, this might be surprising for the audience, but we are also running some kind of waste management statistics from all over the world, and going through evaluation of how efficient particular countries are in terms of waste management. And I must say that there are big differences between countries and big surprises, actually. Nordics are not that green as they might seem to be, because they recycle a lot, but they still produce a lot of waste. So this is something that probably, or ideally, should be taken into consideration, that you know, high recycling rate doesn't always mean you are performing well. It's low waste production. Unfortunately, there is a connection between how well the country does and how much waste it produces for the time being. It's a challenge for future to change this ratio. And I also must say that there are now regions, also in the Middle East, where they are starting from scratch, building really very solid waste management systems, and they are jumping there from the start because they have a clear vision and the power to do it. So they will very probably overstep some of the countries in Europe in the near future. So that's how we currently see the market, and hopefully this will really happen.
Yeah, totally. Can we talk a little bit about the business side of things? Your company, you know, everyone needs to make a buck at the end of the day, and waste management is a business on its own as well, quite a big one globally. What are some of the lowest hanging fruits, you know, that you see, like let's say, you know, business wise in Middle East or Africa? Like, what are the waste streams, the residuals that you would advise people to focus on, where, you know, it's not only good for the planet, but maybe where recycling makes the most sense?
It makes sense everywhere, but as I said, like the deposit return schemes are something which I believe will bring a lot. Now, also outside Europe, there are countries or regions, even I would say, there are big difference also in terms of different cities within the country that are trying to deploy some kind of deposit return schemes for materials that were not included before. I'm talking about tires, I'm talking about different kinds of electronics. And this is happening, and that would have a really amazing impact that we haven't seen in the past. So far, what was usually included are the packaging for the plastic bottles, Tetra Paks, and aluminum cans, ideally also some glass. But this is like a standard, and this is going to change. And there are huge schemes being deployed currently worldwide in different regions, also in Asia. So this is something that would have really like global impact. But when talking about, for example, municipalities, for them, optimization of waste collection in terms of routing makes a huge impact. There is incredible, really very bad impact from waste collection. This, unfortunately, is not yet about electronic cars. This is a huge truck that produces incredible amount of emissions and consume a really lot of fuel. I'm talking about like a 70 liters per 100 kilometers. It's incredible bad. And if we are able to squeeze this to 40%, you are making true impact within the city. So there are different kind of low-hanging fruits for different type of customers. Everyone is looking for different benefits, but it's all available for them. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the example with the cars, and it's when you have a fleet of hundreds of them in a city like Prague, it's a huge cost, and reducing that with digitalization can really get you a long way. Yeah, Andrea, thanks a lot. That was our 10 minutes. I'll hand over to Lance to listen to his perspective as well, and then we'll have a discussion with all three of us. So stay tuned. Lance, over to
Thank you. For the benefit of those who just joined, let me just briefly introduce myself again. My name is Lance. I'm founder of ScrapDeals, a waste tech company based in Singapore that is specialized in automating the collection of waste data using IoT and AI. Now, AI is a buzzword these days, but a lot of people forget that in order to implement AI, you first of all need to have data. And for those of you in the waste management industry, you probably know that apart from North America and maybe some countries in Europe, data and research is really lacking in the waste management sphere. However, the world is becoming more concerned about sustainability. So many companies have chosen to produce ESG reports or apply for green building certifications. And all of these require waste data in the reporting. And even though these are voluntary actions taken by a lot of corporates, there are also many countries, certainly here in Singapore, we have government policies that requires mandatory waste data reporting and a game plan on how to reduce the amount of waste that you produce. In addition, many exchanges, again, like the one in Singapore here, also require their listed companies to produce sustainability reports that includes waste and recycling data. Now, the reality is, even though waste data is needed for reporting in all of these areas, most of the time, the data that is produced is either lacking in quality, inaccurate, or painfully collected using human labor. So, for example, I know of waste haulers that are still using spreadsheets to collate the numbers through manual entry and then sending these numbers to their clients through good old-fashioned email. And a lot of corporates claim that they are recycling, but the reality is they don't know where their recyclables go once the trader or the waste hauler or the waste broker has collected it from their premises. So you may have read about scandals in the US, in the UK, and even here in Singapore as well. There has been big scandals where companies that run recycling collection schemes have seen their recyclables landing up in waste fields, landfills, after journalists planted trackers in them. And very often, companies also report waste data using very rough estimations based on the volume of trash or the floor area occupied by a tenant in a multi-tenanted building. Now, waste haulers seldom give individual clients their waste volume, unless you happen to be such a big company, you own the whole building, you occupy the whole of it, or you have a whole facility, like the entire factory is yours. Some people often point out to me that there are a lot of smart bins. Yes, there are a lot of smart bins available in the world today, big and small. But the reality is cost is a factor, as Dr. Alexander has alluded to just now. Most smart bins are pretty expensive, so they are mostly used for municipal collection purposes. Now, right now, waste reporting for corporates is mainly a voluntary or compliance requirement. So most companies actually want to spend as little on it as possible, if not at all. And currently, the most accurate way for any company to do their waste generation data reporting is actually to do a waste audit, and this is a human-based effort. It literally involves pouring the trash out on the floor, sorting, counting, and weighing it, and then manually recording it into a spreadsheet. And of course, this can only be done for small sample sizes, let's say in one particular part of the building, over say a few days to a week, because again, it is very labor intensive. So you can't expect to be doing this the whole year round to collect your waste data. So to tackle this problem, there are a few startups in the world, including myself, ScrapDeals, which is attempting to solve the problem using IoT and AI to automate the collection of waste data. Now, this is a work that I often call a blue ocean, if you're familiar with the Blue Ocean Strategy book. The reason for this is because waste management for corporates is one of the least digitalized activities that I know of in the world amongst any industry. So there is a huge opportunity here for digitalization. However, the challenge is, again, the issue of cost. With almost no ROI in the recyclables collected and the high cost of most solutions that are being provided right now, many companies actually see this as a very low priority. In addition, most of the focus right now within corporate ESG is actually on reducing carbon emissions. So even though waste itself is responsible for producing quite a fair bit of carbon emission, it is what you call a scope 3 emission, which is still an emerging area for CO2 calculation, where ESG is concerned for corporates. So the race is on amongst various startups like myself to try and come up with the most effective and low-cost solutions for corporates and facility managers to collect waste data. So that's briefly what I wanted to share with you in a nutshell.
Thanks, Lance. Exciting, interesting. I have a few questions again, and we have a few minutes before we jump into our joint discussion, and then we will go to all these interesting questions that already started landing in our chat. So please continue asking that. We promise we will select some of them. So Lance, I'm curious, like, okay, if you closed your eyes and you had a magical wand and you waved it, what would need to happen to, to digitize the waste management globally at scale? Like, what's that magical, powerful thing that we're missing? What the number one opportunity, what would that be?
Wow, that's a tough one. I think the magical one has to be waved from the policy end. Government has to mandate waste data reporting, at least for the big waste producers. And certainly we are seeing that starting to happen in Singapore, probably by far the most mature market in terms of waste data collection is Australia. And if government policies are imposed on an economy, then that becomes a bigger reason for at least for the big businesses to actually collect and report the waste data. But if you're asking whether there's a magic cure in terms of technology, I don't really think so, because waste itself comes in all sorts of varieties. There's solid waste, there's liquid waste, there's e-waste, there's hazardous waste. And all of these different types of waste requires different ways of safely collecting, segregating, processing them, and also collecting the data. So I don't think there's one magic technology that you can apply to make the whole waste management seem better.
Some wise answers here. Thank you for that. One more question. What keeps you up at night? I mean, you're running a business, you're scaling it, backed by VC. So what What problem are you working on solving right now? Can you share something personal with us? Of course, business related.
I think the biggest headache is cost. And that's why we need cutting edge technology like IoT and AI to solve the issue. Because again, waste in itself is a cost. For anyone that generates waste, in almost all countries, you have to pay someone to get rid of waste for you, whether you are a private resident or a private company, or even a government entity for that matter. So to say that, and recyclables, again, when you collect it, has very low value. So to say that there's this additional cost slapped on you to tally the amount of waste that you generate and report it to most entities, that is very discouraging. So the more you can minimize the cost, the better it will be. And on the other end of the spectrum, if the waste that is collected, be it food waste or plastic or metal or even liquid waste, if on the other end of it, we can find very efficient technologies to process it. For example, there is a very early stage use of protein enzymes in plastic recycling to process all sorts of plastics. And those of you who are familiar with the field will know that plastics is a particularly tricky issue because it's hard to segregate. There are so many types, and the output is not easy to find a market for it. So again, the economics doesn't work out well, and we need much more scalable technologies that makes sense also on the output side. So the collection of the feedstock, the input is difficult. The market demand for the output is difficult, especially again for plastics. So these issues keep me up awake at night, frankly, because in the last 2 years since I've gone into this field, I've often complained to my friends and family that, you know, in 20 years of doing business, I've never found an industry in which I've struggled so hard to find an attractive or viable business model, especially to the clients we are pitching to.
It's a tough business. Can confirm that.
It
All
is
right,
tough.
thank you so much. Thanks, Lance. I would like to invite all of our panelists now on our digital stage. We'll have 8 minutes of our internal chat with some of the questions that I would like to ask all of them, and then we will jump into some of the questions that you asked us previously. So coming back to this theme of today, it's 2023, and I have to ask you about AI. We have seen an insane development, right? And AI from all kinds of angles. That's revolutionizing all kinds of industries. What impact do you see AI having on the waste management today? And what do you think will happen in the next year or two? Can we expect something huge? Or will it be kind of slow like it has been for the last few years? Anyone wants to start?
Well, I can start if no one else is willing to. There certainly will be big things happening in the different areas. When I'm, for example, taking the example of city, most cities now struggle with deployment or implementation of pay-as-you-throw, because the city structure is very complex, and to collect everything door to door and to track and trace the production for the particular households is just too complicated for big cities. And where AI comes in is the simplification and automatic identification of these of the waste that these households have produced. This is one of the examples. Also, there will be better identification or easier identification of wrong waste, for example, thrown in a bin where it doesn't belong. But this is like, I would say, 15 years ahead of us. There will be systems in place that will automatically identify and basically give the citizens, I would say, bad points that will automatically be linked with their accounts registered in the city, and similar kind of things that will help the city to manage this topic, because now it's too much about a paperwork and too much about the task, which is extremely costly to handle. Extremely costly also from the terms of how many people are required to do it, and so on. From the business perspective, or talking about factories or large companies producing waste, there is a lot of automation already happening. They are naturally ahead because it's a private sector. And there will be also a lot happening also in terms of actually defining the waste streams that are available for other businesses. There are already now, I would call it like open arenas online, where a particular factory can place the residues they have and find a customer for that. And this will be automatically done. You won't be able or won't be required to look for it separately. So automation, digitalization is what will really happen. It's very much connected with money. So let's see what challenges in terms of politics the particular regions will face, because naturally some other things take priority. So this was like examples of an ideal world that might be available.
Yeah, and thank you for that. It's always exciting to focus on the good stuff that's about to come. Alexander, you're unmuted. I can see that you want to add your take.
Yes, from my perspective, honestly spoken, I do not see the big bang tomorrow morning or within the next couple of months, due to several reasons. First of all, we do have very interesting technology developments so far. Some of them, from my perspective, still being optimized, meaning that there's still quite a long way to go if we do talk about level detection, even route optimization. It is working, it's working well, but for the time being, from my perspective, still quite some way to go. Nevertheless, it's good we do already have this development in place. Secondly, we already mentioned the pricing issue. In some of the cases, just the pricing is too high, meaning the outcome, the benefit, is too low for quite a high price you have. So as I'm saying, not really expecting the big bang. Also, we need to bear in mind that, yeah, everybody talks about IoT, everybody has bright ideas, and yes, of course, waste management could be excellent. Nevertheless, we need to bear in mind, even if a municipality would decide by today, for example, installing one of the systems coming from Andrea, it will be a decision-taking period of, let's make it half a year, maybe half a year of a pilot, then maybe and whatsoever. So probably it might take up to 2 years until this system is in place. On top of that, many decision makers, up to a certain extent, sorry for saying so, are still a bit old school. So meaning that they talk about IoT, they talk about AI, but by the end of the day, the real implementation takes a bit more time to convince them. That's part of my day-to-day business, to tell my customers, to tell municipalities, to tell people about the benefits. So, and on top of that, and I think Lance did mention very well, on the one hand side, IoT is very interesting to optimize waste collection, fully agree. At the same time, and often this is forgotten about it, it will help to increase industrial segregation. Lance, you did mention plastic, for example. There's still a long way to go to optimize, and I'm very much sure that artificial intelligence will have a major impact here just to improve segregation. And at the same time, it was mentioned, yes, regulation might help a little bit, but what we have seen by the end of the markets, by the end of the day, the markets, they do push. And for the time being, yes, we have a situation in which the prices for secondary raw materials, as we call them, are still pretty low. But from my perspective, this is changing. And by the end of the day, the market will be pushing automatically, from my perspective, for more segregation, because more segregation will mean by the end of the day, and for some countries, I call it waste to wealth. So I think IoT will have, as mentioned, a positive impact on waste collection, absolutely, on optimization of waste collection, but at the same time as well on industrial segregation, including platforms for the international trade of these goods. So summarizing up, not expecting the big bang tomorrow morning, but a very good development into the right direction. And honestly spoken, whatever we do is a major step forward. And even if it's only a very small step, I think IoT will for sure have a very positive impact. But please bearing in mind that still for many, many countries out there in the world, if you do not know on what to eat tomorrow, if you are starving, you do not care about waste. And meaning that we need to differentiate here globally in between the needs of the countries talking about waste and what can and should be done.
Word. Andrea, I see you raise the hand. Maybe you want to follow up. Please, if you could be really brief, because then we're jumping onto the last.
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm what Alexander said, that there is a long time in deployment. The phase exactly include piloting, evaluating, and everything, and all that takes 2 years. Really, I confirm. Only one point in regards of what actually might change the market is also, for example, reshaping the business case, for example, for waste collection companies, because we are basically opening the eyes in terms of data. Once, for example, you are monitoring with the sensors, you see everything what's going on, how full the bins were when they were emptied. But the waste collection companies' contracts are usually linked of how many times you go there, the better you are paid. So they should actually reshape what is the ideal outcome of their services. Is it to have on-time waste collection or done collection like every other day? So this is just a point for a practical life.
Yeah. Business cases and waste management often want more waste and more diesel to be burned, not less. That's a good point. Okay, Lance, really quickly, please come in, and then we go to the questions from the audience.
Yeah, I just wanted to say really quickly, AI is right now being used in waste management primarily for geolocation optimization, as well as computer vision, AI sorting in material recovery facilities. But the problem is, again, AI works based on data, and in waste management, a lot of data is lacking. Today, generative AI, a lot of it is trained off public data from the internet, but you can't do that with the waste management industry. If you try to build an AI waste sorter today, you find that you can't just download data off Kaggle, easily and train a machine learning model. A lot of it has to be proprietary. When we built our computer vision for trash cans, we literally had to manually go take the pictures ourselves because it just doesn't exist as free public data, which is where most of the AI development is taking place today. Yeah. That's all I wanted to add.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay, our esteemed participants and audience, now it's time for your amazing questions, and we have a lot. And I would love to go through as many as possible. So I would love to ask Lance, Alexander, and Andrea to try to be brief and to the point. I know it's hard, and you have been amazing so far, so bear with me. The first question here is, how easily can IoT solutions be integrated into existing waste management infrastructure? And what considerations are important when doing so?
Yeah, so I was assigned this question. Maybe I'll just quickly answer it. The reality is there can be very cheap and easy IoT solutions. Bin fill sensors, for example. Ultrasonic bin fill sensors or infrared bin fill sensors can be easily attached to the top of a trash can, and it will tell you whether that can is full, half full, or whatever. And those are very, very cheap IoT technology. You can use the internal Wi-Fi network to actually broadcast a signal and all that. And the data is not sensitive at all. On the other hand, there can also be very expensive technologies like, again, AI optical sorters. There are now attempts in the world of corporate ESG to build central collection bins within a multi-tenanted building or a mall, for example, where tenants can scan QR codes or have infrared tags, or Bluetooth tags that identify their trash can. They pour it into the central bins. It will automatically sort the waste for them and collect it, and also collect data like waste, the weight of the waste, as well as composition of waste and contamination levels. These are very expensive to implement. So and they involve many different IoT sensors and devices. So it can be very complicated and expensive. It can be very cheap. It really depends on what you want to do.
Awesome. Anyone else wants to jump in on that question? If not, then let's go to another one. Given the sensitive nature of waste data, what measures are in place to ensure the security and privacy of the information collected through IoT devices?
Maybe I can comment on that. This is always the very first question actually the cities ask, because they are very concerned about this data, and it's really from the device perspective, there is a double encryption in place, and it also depends on which kind of network the customer decided to use. I won't name particular ones, but there are also ones that are usually fully owned by the city. They are building their own infrastructure of Internet of Things and connecting different kind of devices into that. So it's actually their own ownership of the data. So there can be various versions of privacy set, but it's always the number one issue. So I wouldn't really worry about this part.
Good to hear. All right. I think this one might land to Alexander because he's been patiently waiting. Let's see if you feel like it. To what extent has the integration of IoT in waste management aligned with market demand for sustainable practices? And how does this influence the profitability of recycling ventures?
Well, if we do talk about profitability, once again, we need to differentiate here. And IoT, for example, if we talk about industrial segregation, it might be increasing profitability, absolutely, no doubt at all. And it will be increasing the quality of segregation, absolutely, no doubt about it. But once again, and I'll give you an example. Let's say on the one hand side, let's say in Northern Europe or so, you do have a very high sophisticated sorting plant. IoT technology involved here. You do have very good segregation technology applied. Okay, outcome is quite positive. Nevertheless, for the time being, believe it or not, from my perspective, manual segregation still is the best, believe it or not. So this is good news from the one hand side, because by the end of the day, it does create labor. On the other hand side, we still do realize that manual segregation is still better than intelligent segregation. So by the end of the day, you need to just consider on what you do. Probably you might be creating jobs with manual segregation. You might be having better quality on that and not having to invest into high sophisticated sorting plants. So you always need to, it's a balance by the end of the day. For sure, yes, it will be increasing profitability and efficiency, indeed. But the other question is it always needed or is it affordable? So it's a kind of balance. Every municipality, every waste collector has to decide for himself, from my perspective.
I love it. I loved all these replies. This whole session today, I feel like I learned a lot, and we still have a few minutes to go. I have a bonus question to all of you. It's I wouldn't be able to call myself a circular economist if I didn't ask. I believe the best waste is no waste. And I believe we talk a lot about collection and recycling, but not enough about producing less waste in the first place. How does IoT help us produce less waste? What are some of the exciting solutions out there that you see, if you see any? Or do you disagree? I would love to hear from you. Anyone else would like to jump in?
So I think there's a very interesting movement that started in the US called True Waste certification. Most of you might be familiar with that. So it's the best known certification worldwide for a company or entity to achieve what you call zero waste. And the certification itself involves reviewing the internal processes and workflows in the company to ensure that they do all sorts of ways and means to reduce the amount of waste, including educating their employees. Where IoT and automation can come in is again in the monitoring and control, because when you want to improve processes, let's say you're starting from 10 kg of paper waste, you want to get to 1 kg or 0 kg per month. When you want to educate your employees and get them to improve, there must be a way to monitor and control it. And again, if it's human effort, looking at the bins, weighing it, checking it, training your janitors, it becomes very difficult. So where technology and IoT can come in is to enable remote and automatic monitoring of the efforts as well as control of it. And even to identify, say, for example, which department within a big company is not recycling right. So all this, if you apply technology to it, then you will be able to automate the process of collecting the data. And with data, you can do improvements, you can know what's wrong. So that will go a long way towards making zero waste movement like True Waste certification much more effective, cheap for companies to implement, and encourage them hopefully to reduce waste and not just talk about the collection and recycling part as you've mentioned.
Thanks. Alexander, Andrea, we have 1.5 minutes, so keep it to 30 seconds, please, but we would love to hear from you.
Just
Okay,
quickly. Sorry, Andrea, ladies first, please.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, from my side, it's a very heavy question. From my side, what I see is really, no matter how good certification or zero waste, brands are on the market, the mission is actually no bite at all, actually. And I'm very skeptical about, the ability of businesses to push people not to buy. It's really like a general movement that has to become like a natural to everyone. And it's a mission for every single part of the market, for policymakers, for everyone. But I'm very skeptical about people being able to be strong enough to buy the things they want, because it's a question for psychology and people like in general. So I just hope that there will be, supporting actually the good way. Off to Alexander.
Yes, just very quickly, we've been talking about the consumer behavior, but on the other hand side, and what we as a matter of fact have done with some of our clients, one example in the beverage industry, the whole manufacturing process is absolutely zero waste. They do not create any waste at all anymore in production because everything goes back into the cycle. This is possible. It works. You need to create data. I fully agree. But first of all, what you need to have is just being smart. Being smart and just being intelligent. So it's not IoT intelligence, it's your own intelligence on how to bring that forward. And then, of course, you use the data to optimize. But from my perspective, it is possible to move that way. Absolutely.
Great. Some words of hopes to conclude this amazing session. Thank you all so much for contributing, for asking us questions. We reached nearly 400 participants today. That's remarkable. Thank you to the hosts and organizers of the event of the last day of the Knowledge Summit. We would love to hear from you. Please connect with us on LinkedIn or elsewhere. And let's create less waste and more money while going forward. And have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all for attending. Bye-bye.